We are starting a new topic, that is CNS. Today I'll be taking only the introduction, certain terms, certain conditions, receptors, etc. Just we will have a look. Okay. So, neurotransmission in CNS. So, as you all know, our brain, it is a supercomputer. It works on different neurochemical neurotransmitters. So, we will see what are the neurotransmitters, how it is functioning, etc. Just an introduction class only today. So, the brain is actually protected by some this a barrier called blood-brain barrier. What are the roles of blood-brain barrier? This preserve the internal environment of the brain, the neurotransmitters, etc., and also protect the brain from different damages. It may be from some extraneous factors or by the effect of the neurotransmitters. So that is protected. The brain is protected by this blood-brain barrier. But there are some areas where blood-brain barrier is absent. That is area postrema, that is the chemoreceptor trigger zone. Then pineal gland, pituitary gland, median eminence, choroid plexus capillaries. There you won't find any this blood-brain barrier. Then the basic process that is happening in the brain, it is they are neurotransmitters, neuromodulators, neuromediators, neurotropic factors. Now we will see one by one what are the neurotransmitters. So they are grouped into the CNS neurotransmitters are acetylcholine, then biogenic amines, amino acids, peptides, purines, etc. And as you see in the periphery, there will be presynaptic and postsynaptic sites are there. Receptors are also there in the brain, and we will see the neurotransmitters. Number one, acetylcholine. You have already studied everything, the acetylcholine in the periphery, but this acetylcholine is also seen in brain, that is cerebral cortex, then ascending reticular activating system, cerebellum, spinal cord, basal ganglia, limbic system, etc. And even this muscarinic and nicotinic receptors are also present in CNS. And this acetylcholine is responsible for the arousal, respiration, motor activity, then memory. Then there is a condition you would have heard of, this Parkinsonism. In this, we will give central anticholinergic drugs. This is because receptors are there. That is why we are giving central anticholinergic drugs. Similarly, Alzheimer's disease. We will give tacrin. It is an anticholinesterase. So again, it is acting with acetylcholine. So that is why that's about acetylcholine. Now about the biogenic amines. The important biogenic amines are dopamine, then dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, 5-HT, histamine, etc. This dopamine, again, it is important in Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, there will be deficiency of dopamine, whereas in schizophrenia, there is an overactivity of dopamine. So this we will again study later in detail. Then this dopamine is mainly an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Its deficiency can cause extrapyramidal symptoms. Dopamine receptors there are 5 receptors, D1 to D5. That is about dopamine. Now another neurotransmitter, that is norepinephrine and epinephrine. This norepinephrine, it is in the CNS, 30% of the catecholam, it is norepinephrine, and it modulates affective disorders. Affective disorders means this depression, etc. So then epinephrine, it is 12%. It is of the reticular formation, it is seen. And 5-HT, that is serotonin, it is mainly it is seen in gastrointestinal system, but 10% it is present in the platelets and brain. And it is involved for the nociception and homeostasis. And we will study all these things, schizophrenia, depression, eating disorders, etc. Or in everywhere we will see this 5-HT also. And 5-HT is one of the precursor for melatonin, and it is synthesized in pineal gland. Then another one is histamine. Histamine receptor also present in the brain. And it is mainly concerned with arousal. That is why when we give H1 blockers like antihistamines, like you would have heard of this levocetirizine, then Avil, that is chlorpheniramine maleate, etc. These are all antihistamines, and that causes sedation because H1 is concerned with arousal. The next type of neurotransmitter is amino acid neurotransmitters, that is glutamate and aspartate. They are excitatory amino acids. And inhibitory amino acids are GABA and glycine. So excitatory, it is glutamate and aspartate, and inhibitory, it is GABA and glycine. So always there should be a balance between the excitatory and inhibitory these neurotransmitters. And if it is more towards inhibitory, that is GABA, there will be more of sedation, amnesia, muscle relaxation, and ataxia. Whereas if there is a reduction of GABA activity, then there will be anxiety. That is opposite thing, it will happen. Nervousness, arousal, insomnia, restlessness, etc. can happen. Then we will learn something about this GABA. It is gamma amino butyric acid. It is a major inhibitory inhibitory neurotransmitter in the mammalian brain, and you will find it very less in the periphery. Now, this GABA is actually synthesized from glutamate, which is excitatory, and this glutamate decarboxylase enzyme converted to GABA, and this GABA transaminase will convert to it is changed to succinic semialdehyde and succinic acid, and the glutamate needed for the synthesis of GABA is obtained from alpha oxoglutarate, that is from the TCA cycle by GABA transaminase enzyme. So it is interconnected. GABA as well as glutamate, it is interconnected. So I am just talking you only the basic details. Now coming to the receptors, this GABA receptors, there are GABA A receptors, GABA A and GABA B receptors. GABA A, it is the prevalent or most common. Then about something about this GABA A receptors, it has got 5 subunits, 2 alpha, 2 beta, and 1 gamma. And again, it is obtained from this polypeptides like alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, theta, and rho. So from this, there are 5 subunits are formed, and it is in how it acts. It actually causes the opening of the chloride channel. I will show the picture also. So this is the GABA receptor. Okay. So it is the chloride channels will be opened when it is activated, and the GABA receptor, it is having a GABA binding site, as well as there are certain modulatory sites also. This again in detail you will study when you study all these drugs. So I'm just telling you only the basic details. So GABA binding site is there, modulatory sites especially for benzodiazepine, flumazenil, it is a benzodiazepine antagonist. And in inverse agonist, it is beta carbolate. All these, there are modulatory sites. Then there is another, so when these drugs act here, the chloride channel, it will be opened. What is that? Who was not muted? Please mute your microphone. Now, this GABA receptors, again, I told you there are 5 subunits. That is alpha, 2 beta, and 1 gamma. This gamma binding site, it is between this alpha and beta. Whereas this modulators, this benzodiazepine, it is between the site. It is between alpha and gamma. So this picture, it is you have to study when you now itself. If you study, it's okay. Otherwise, when you study benzodiazepines and barbiturates, these are important. And the difference between the action of benzodiazepine and barbiturates is that, so you have seen there is a chloride channel. So when benzodiazepine, it binds here, it increases the frequency of opening of these channels. That is benzodiazepines. That is like our diazepam. Then barbiturates, it actually, the duration of the channel, it is prolonged. That is by barbiturate. Here it is frequency, here it is the duration. So both it acts to by opening the chloride channel opening. So this is about the GABA receptor. Yes, the barbiturates, the therapeutic doses, it increases the duration of chloride channel opening. And picrotoxin is the one which blocks the channel. There is one other drug called picrotoxin. So I was talking about GABA A, and this GABA B, it is not modulated by benzodiazepine or barbiturates, and it is very low levels are seen in the brain, and it is not connected to chloride channel. So whereas the GABA A, it is connected to chloride channel. And this GABA B, it is a GPCR, G protein coupled receptor, and it decreases the cyclic AMP, and when it is activated, it causes hyperpolarization. So this, there are certain drugs that is acting through GABA B, that is you will study later, baclofen, that is used for spastic disorders. Okay, so because this causes relaxation. Then another one, it is glycine. So GABA is a inhibitory neurotransmitter, and glycine is another inhibitory neurotransmitter. So here also, it is a receptor similar to GABA A. Through chloride channel, it will be acting. And the antagonist of glycine, it is called strychnine. Then you would have also heard this tetanus toxin. Which bacteria causes tetanus? Fatimaria. Which bacteria causes Fatimaria? Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Which bacteria causes tetanus?
Clostridium tetani.
Which tetany?
Clostridium tetani.
Clostridium. Yes, yes. Okay, very good. So that is tetanus toxin. So what happens there when this, because of the toxin, it will prevent the glycine release. That means an inhibitory neurotransmitter, it is prevented. So naturally there will be hyperexcitability, and there will be violent muscle spasm and lockjaw. And the patients, they will not be able to open their mouth because of the lockjaw. So because of the hyperexcitability and violent muscle spasm. That is tetanus toxin. And this is because there is an inhibition of the glycine. Glycine is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Okay, now coming to the excitatory neurotransmitters, glutamate and aspartate. They are the most important excitatory neurotransmitter. But already we have seen this glutamate is a precursor for GABA. Already I have shown you the picture. Now coming to glutamate receptors. This is an important, glutamate is also important because there are 5 receptors: NMDA receptor, AMBA receptor, kainate receptor, AP4, APCD. Don't worry, you can at least remember this NMDA receptor, AMBA receptor. And these 3 are inotropic receptors. This is inhibitory receptor, and this is the metabotropic receptor. So because this glutamate receptor, there are different drugs that is acting through this glutamate NMDA receptor antagonist, agonist, etc. are there. So we will be studying that. That is why I told you it is a glutamate receptor. NMDA, it is an inotropic receptor. Okay, this NMDA and this metabotropic receptors, they are important in the learning and memory. So we will be seeing that, yes. So this NMDA receptors is mainly for memory acquisition, memory, development of synaptic plasticity. Then also in epilepsy it is there. The neuronal excitotoxicity that is happening in cerebral ischemia. So all these are through this NMDA receptors. So now about the structure of this NMDA receptor also, there are 6 binding sites. There is, first I'll tell you the name, then I'll show it. So there is a NMDA, there is a this binding site is there. Then modulatory glycine binding site, polyamine binding site, PCP site, voltage dependent magnesium binding site and voltage dependent zinc ion binding site. Okay, so this is the thing. So this is the NMDA. This is just a hypothetical model of NMDA receptor. So this NMDA receptor, it is having, so here the channel is actually calcium and sodium. So GABA, it is chloride, here it is calcium, sodium. So this glutamate, so the binding sites are, so the glutamate binding site will be there, glycine binding site will be there, polyamine will be there, then a PCP, phencyclopine, that is site is there. So there is a drug related to this PCP, it is ketamine. It is a general anesthetic, again you will study later. Then magnesium, it is, and zinc. So these are the same. This magnesium is important because magnesium, when it is present, this NMDA receptor, this is actually, it will be blocked. So this will keep the channel blocked by, it is blocked by magnesium. So there are glutamate binding site, glycine, polyamine, PCP, magnesium, and zinc. So this is a model of NMDA receptor. So this I showed because this is important in the neuronal plasticity. Now we will see what is happening in synaptic plasticity. So synaptic plasticity, what is it? What is synaptic plasticity? Any idea? Aisha Hana? Aisha Hana.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea what is the synaptic plasticity?
I'm not very sure, ma'am.
You are not very sure. Who is sure of this term? Safwan? Fasil? Do you know?
I don't know, ma'am.
You don't know. Who knows it? Joseph?
Don't know, madam.
Don't know. Who knows? Who is having good learning and memory in the class? Who is having? Hello? You know your friends? Who is having more memory power? Hello? All gone. Hello? Why you are silent?
Oh, ma'am, you're here.
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, okay. What was my question?
Synaptic plasticity.
No, I followed by that another question.
Okay, who has memory?
You don't know anybody who is having high learning and memory. Okay, so we will take it in such a way that 2018 regular batch, all are having good learning and memory. Okay, so what is the synaptic plasticity? That is for the learning and memory, there is a lot of synaptic connections are needed. So that is the synaptic plasticity. So how this more synapses means there is more communication, isn't it? More transmission. So our learning and memory will be improved. That is called synaptic plasticity. So we will see how it is happening. The synaptic plasticity is happening. There is another term called excitotoxicity. This is the opposite. So synaptic plasticity occurs when there is long-term potentiation, long-term adaptive changes. It is just the opposite. It is excitotoxicity. Okay, we will see that. That is overstimulation of the glutamate receptors. That is called excitotoxicity. This is happening in neurodegeneration and apoptosis. Whereas long-term adaptive changes occurs in synaptic plasticity. Okay, we will see. Okay. So what is synaptic plasticity? There is an increase in the synaptic efficacy, synaptic proliferation, connectivity, and that an increased load on memory. So two factors, long-term potentiation and long-term depression. So this long-term potentiation and this depression, that is the opposite of it, it is long-term depression. This should be in equilibrium. Otherwise, it may lead to excitotoxicity. So we will see what is happening by seeing the receptors. And okay, this is the picture. Again, we will start from here. So this is, I'll just show the what are there. This is glutamate, this AMPA receptors, NMDA receptors, metabotropic receptors. These three are the receptors involved in the synaptic plasticity and excitotoxicity. So this is AMPA, NMDA, and metabotropic. You can see magnesium, it is blocking this NMDA receptor. Okay, so when if there is brief depolarization, there is normally if brief depolarization, learning it is very less. So brief depolarization, then what will happen? This glutamate, it will stimulate AMPA and there is entry of sodium. But it won't remove this magnesium. So NMDA is blocked. And this depolarization or the glutamate, it is less for activating this metabotropic receptors also. So both these receptors are not active in brief depolarization. But if there is persistent if there is persistent or sustained depolarization, what will happen? Because this glutamate, it will remove this magnesium. So the block is removed. So naturally, sodium, calcium, as well as the calcium in this. And at the same time, it will stimulate the metabotropic receptors. So excessive depolarization or learning, a lot of load is increased. The glutamate, it will remove the magnesium block as well as metabotropic receptors are activated. So here there is entry of calcium. At the same time, this metabotropic receptors through this PAP2, IP3, DAG pathway, again it will be synthesizing calcium. So there is excess of calcium. This calcium also converts nitric oxide synthase and to nitric oxide. Nitric oxide in lower level, it is protective, but when it is high amount, there will be retrograde signaling and more glutamate will be released. So the cycle again continues. So here activated, here activated, here activated, again calcium. So again nitric oxide. So like that it is going on. And at the same time, this calcium, this also stimulates this protein kinase C, PKC. And this PKC is actually two actions. It will be phosphorylate this AMPA receptors as well as, so there will be more of again this glutamate release. And at the same time, this also responsible for gene transcription and increased synaptic plasticity. So in effect, PKC is more responsible for increased synaptic plasticity. So understood? So there is, if it is normal or brief depolarization, that is minus 70 millivolt, this will only AMPA is stimulated. Whereas if it is sustained depolarization, that is up to minus 40. Minus 70 to minus 40, if it comes, all these blocks are removed, then there is increased release of calcium, then protein kinase C and increased synaptic plasticity. So this is happening in synaptic plasticity or long-term potentiation. Now, but if it continues like that, there will be a lot of calcium, isn't it? So if nitric oxide, if it's in the beginning stage, it won't be that much problematic. But later on, because of the these reactive oxidation species, it may be damaging because of the free radical formation, and it may damage the neurons, and there will be neurodegeneration. And this is called this is excess of calcium causing this degeneration. This is called excitotoxicity. So because of the excess of calcium, increased this oxygen free radical, and because of the excess glutamate release, that will lead to what is called excitotoxicity. So that will lead to neurodegeneration and apoptosis. So two ends. On one end, there will be synaptic plasticity, and if it is excess, there will be excitotoxicity. Yes, same thing. Excitotoxicity, there will be calcium overload, increased glutamate release, reactive oxygen species, activation of nitric oxide synthase to nitric oxide, free radical neurotoxicity. Okay, so that is the two things. So we have seen the glutamate and aspartate. And now some more neurotransmitters, just the names you will see. Peptides as neurotransmitters. 24 endogenous peptides are found out. I'm not showing you everything. Then the primary difference, it is the synthesis as well as there is no presynaptic reuptake. So these are the peptide neurotransmitters like oxytocin, tachykinins, substance P, vasoactive intestinal peptide, enkephalins, dynorphins, endomorphins. A lot of things are there. So at least just the name you can listen. Neuropeptide, why this is important. Then nitric oxide already I have shown. Then another miscellaneous, it is endocannabinoids. Endocannabinoid is a cannabinoid receptor. So one endogenous ligand of the central cannabinoid receptor, it is anandamide. So the name itself, anandamide, it actually gives pleasure. So we will be, later on we will see that. So anandamide, the name itself is self-explanatory. Then purines, other neurotransmitters, that is purines, adenosine and ATP. So from ATP, adenosine will be liberated, synthesized. And this adenosine, it is an inhibitory transmitter. And it is mainly, it is for the, you will study again, I think you have already studied in antiarrhythmic. So supraventricular tachycardia, we are using adenosine, and also for the seizures, it is useful. Yes, ATP, yes, it is in the vesicle, it will be there, and ATP is converted to adenosine. So we have seen the acetylcholine, it is excitatory as well as inhibitory action, norepinephrine excitatory inhibitory action is there. Then 5-HT excitatory inhibitory action, histamine inhibitory, dopamine inhibitory, GABA, GABA and glycine inhibitory. Glutamate, aspartate, excitatory, substance B, it is excitatory. A lot of things are there. I've just taken. So at least you remember GABA, glycine, and the dopamine, it is inhibitory. Aspartate and glutamine, it is excitatory. So one question. So dopamine, it is inhibitory. So okay, we will come to that question later. I'll show some more thing. Now, the types of mental disorders. So we have seen all the neurotransmitters, and we will be in this CNS chapter, we will be studying many mental disorders also, like neurosis, psychosis, affective disorders. Okay, neurosis, it is actually, it is less serious, and we know the causative factor also. Some it may be traumatic neurosis. So sometimes we would have had some example soldiers. They would have some traumatic experience when they were in the battlefield, and they are again sent back to the battlefield for another war. So they will be developing some neurosis that is called traumatic neurosis. And another type, it is called psychoneurosis. This it can be under psychoneurosis can be different type of neurosis. It is anxiety neurosis. This we all will face when the examination it comes. We are having this anxiety neurosis. Then phobic neurosis. What is phobic neurosis? Hello. Phobic neurosis.
Due to fear of something.
Fear of something.
Fear of something.
Something, yes. Who told that is Tamanna or Nila? Who was responding? Who was answering that?
Nila, ma'am.
Nila. Because both sounds came. Okay, so it is phobic neurosis. I think most of the girls will be having some type of phobic neurosis. I mean, when you see a cockroach, you will be screaming, no? Some people. Okay. Don't disclose your phobias. Or when we see cockroach or this lizard. So like that, people will be having phobias. So phobic neurosis. Then obsessive compulsive neurosis. Obsessive compulsive neurosis means we will be doing certain things repetitively. So sometimes we will be washing. You see, now this corona season, this corona pandemic, and we are asked to wash our hands with soap and water. So some people, they will not be satisfied. They will be satisfied only if they wash their hands some 15 to 20 times. So that is called obsessive compulsive neurosis. That is one thing. Then hysterical neurosis. It is actually hysteria. This is again something, they won't be having any disease or anything, but they will be pretending. So that is hysteria. Panic disorders, that is, this panic disorders or hypochondriacal, it usually happens in medical students also when they come to clinics and when they start studying about chest pain, and they will think that they will be having myocardial whenever they develop some gastric upset, and if they develop some chest pain, they may start thinking that they are having myocardial infarction. So that is hypochondriacal behavior. Reactive depression or neurotic depression. This happens whenever we are bereaved. That means someone dies in our family. Because of that, we may develop some depression, but it is only temporary. So these are all neuroses, psychoneurosis. But psychosis can be organic because of the alteration in neurotransmitter. So that is, there can be delusions, that is false belief. Then illusions, that is misinterpretation, that is illusion. Hallucination, it can be false perceptions. So there, it can be all auditory hallucination will be there, visual hallucination, olfactory hallucination. See, auditory means they will be seeing something, even though it is not there. Visual means auditory means they will be hearing something. Visual means they will be seeing something which is not present there. Then olfactory, that is, they will be getting some smells. It may be bad smell or good smell. So such, that is called hallucination. So this, in psychosis, this happens. Psychosis again, two types. It is organic and functional. Organic, it can be because of some brain infections, and they may develop dementia, disorientation, etc. Functional type of psychosis, it is what is called schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, this was only the question I was about to ask. So in schizophrenia, this dopamine, there is overactivity. So schizophrenia and depression, if you can take dopamine as the central transmitter. If there is overactivity, that will lead to schizophrenia. If there is underactivity or deficiency, that will lead to depression. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So overactivity will lead to schizophrenia, and if there is less, means it will lead to depression. So then what can be the treatment for schizophrenia? In general.
Dopamine antagonist.
Yes, dopamine. Who answered?
Aisha Hana.
Aisha Hana. Okay. Okay, very good. So it is dopamine antagonist. And for depression, can someone else tell? For depression, what can be the treatment? Hello? Asif?
Ma'am,
What is the treatment for depression?
same dopamine antagonist.
What is happening?
Dopamine agonist.
Yes, something that will increase the dopamine. So that is depression. Okay. So many drugs are there that you will study later. This is the basic concept. Okay. Okay. Then I was talking about again this schizophrenia. In schizophrenia, there will be positive and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms, already I have told, delusions, illusions, or auditory hallucination, etc. And they can be aggressive also. Negative means introvert. So these are some pictures of introvert. So they will be keep on talking like that extrovert, and this introvert just silent, gloomy like that. So it is the negative. Then the schizophrenia, again, it can be simple, hemiphrenic, and that can then paranoid type as well as catatonic type. So simple means early onset, and the patient may not be knowing the changes that is happening in them. Only the others will detect that there is something, some problem with the patient. So that is very in the early stage. Then hemiphrenic or buffoonish. Hemiphrenic or buffoonish means later on they will develop certain behaviors in such a way they will think that they will act like a buffalo. Now, I'm just taking one example only, not always buffalo. Or they will be having, they will think that they are an emperor. So they will be behaving like that. So that is called hemiphrenic or buffoonish behavior. Then paranoid, they will be having the fear, that is paranoid, and sometimes they will be violent also. Then catatonic, catatonic means like this. The patient, they will be they will be having a particular one. They will be in one position like this, stupor. So there is no movement, no. What is that? They will be standing or sitting in one position for a long time. That is called catatonic. So these are the type that is happening in schizophrenia. When you go to clinics, you will be studying everything in detail. So then I was talking about schizophrenia. Then affective disorder. Affective disorder that is related to mood. It can be mania and depression. And there is another one called manic depressive psychosis. So this manic depressive psychosis, it is a cyclical one. And on one end, there will be mania, and the other end, it will be depression. The same thing. Schizophrenia, there is this mania, there is increased dopamine, and depression, it is there is reduced dopamine. So this depression, they can be neurotic. Later on, they can be suicidal and become agitative also. Like that, it may change. There is variations. And so MDP, it is a manic depressive psychosis. So there is it will swing between extreme excitement and profound depression. So it is a cyclic, this thing. It is a bipolar disorder. So everything. Hello? Yes. Everything, there are treatment. So we will be studying everything. So I was talking about the schizophrenia, mania, depression, etc. Okay. So there is a saying that neurotics touch with realities, build castles in air, but do not live in them. Psychotics, because of loss of contact with realities, not only build but start living in them. Whereas psychiatrists are smart owners of these castles as they charge rent from both of them. Okay, thank you.